looking forward to a productive meeting. President Biden has a long history with President Xi. Their conversations are direct, they're straightforward, and President Biden believes that there is no substitute for leader-to-leader, face-to-face diplomacy to manage this complex relationship between the United States and China.
Comments from National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan there. You might not have expected even a year ago, but there are significant efforts underway in the U.S. to improve the relationship with China, which will culminate in a meeting between President Joe Biden and his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping this week. What's more, the meeting will take place on U.S. soil during the Asia-Pacific Summit in San Francisco. The two had stopped talking for months following the spy balloon controversy at the beginning of the year. This is the first face-to-face meeting since then. And here to help us break down the high-stakes summit sit-down is Canada's former ambassador to China, Guy Saint-Jacques. Hi, Mr. Saint-Jacques. Great to see you. Thanks for making the time.
Thank you for the invitation, Mrs. Kapelos.
Is this meeting, an in-person meeting, in any way a surprise to you, given how strained the relationship has been, or is it in line with some of the signals we've seen recently from the U.S. about wanting to improve the relationship?
Well, I think the United States has made a huge effort to try to relaunch some of the dialogues that used to take place in the past. And so we have seen in the last few months a number of visits by Americans. Secretary Blinken went to China. John Kerry went to discuss climate change. Secretary of the Treasury, Mrs. Yellen, went. And so I think it's the Americans that want to relaunch a number of important dialogues that have not been taking place for a year, like those between military. And this is important to try to limit potential misunderstanding. We know that there have been a number of incidents at sea in the Taiwan Strait between Chinese vessels and American vessels, also between airplanes. And so I think now we are seeing the fruit of all these efforts by especially the United States to relaunch some kind of dialogue with China.
The military aspect of this, because, of course, that was the major key part of the relationship that initially broke down, seems to be really significant as they look to warm the relationship more largely. Do you anticipate there could be something like an announcement as soon as this week about that relationship restarting in a military capacity?
I would expect so. I think this would be one of the main deliverables on the Chinese side. So probably there will be an announcement saying that the militaries of both sides will resume regular contacts. And I think this is very important for the security of the world. And of course, for China, a very important issue is Taiwan. They would like the U.S. to, in fact, they would like President Biden to say that he opposes Taiwanese independence instead of the usual does not support. But I think on this, President Biden will not move. Also, I think President Biden will want to impress on Xi Jinping that the status quo is the best for Taiwan at this stage. And of course, they have a lot of other political issues to discuss, like China's support for Russia after its invasion of Ukraine, and also I think that President Biden will tell President Xi that China should not interfere in U.S. elections, because of course we are getting in a full cycle for the next presidential elections.
I wanted to ask you just kind of in that vein, because so frequently we've met over the past year on this program to talk about China as an adversary, right? In particular, in the context here in Canada of foreign interference. But in the years prior, I mean, the two Michaels, there's a long list, really. And I think there are a lot of people who will be watching this summit this week who have advocated for a more isolationist policy toward China. Do you ultimately think if the U.S. and China have a better relationship than they do right now, that is overall better for global security, or are you concerned at all?
I think dialogue is always preferable, because it's the best way to avoid misunderstandings. And of course, the Chinese feel that the United States are in decline, that they want to get out of international conflict. And the long-term goal of Xi Jinping is for China to become the #1 superpower. But this is happening also in the context where China has been having a difficult year. They came out of the zero COVID strategy with a weaker economy. In fact, the economy is not in good shape. The two previous motors for growth, real estate and exports, are way down. Consumption is not picking up. The private sector has been punished and is very reluctant to invest more. As a result, youth unemployment is high. In fact, China has stopped publishing the figures on the number of youth that are unemployed, but it's probably over 21%. And the debt is growing, and foreign investment is going down. So I think for China, this is also an opportunity to ask President Biden to eliminate tariffs and to be more accommodating to American investment in China. So I expect that there will be probably some announcement also on the economic side.
Yeah, that's really good context about the situation, I think, in China. I just have a few seconds left, Mr. Saint-Jacques, but I did want to ask you about the Canadian context as well, because Prime Minister Trudeau will be there. Late last week, when this meeting was announced, we asked the Prime Minister's office, will there be anything on the sidelines for President Xi and Prime Minister Trudeau? And they said they weren't in a position to talk about the schedule at that time. Do you anticipate anything?
No, I don't think there will be any meeting. In fact, I was looking at what Ambassador Tsong Pei-u said in his interview with the Canadian press, and in fact, it's still the same story, that Canada has to learn from its mistake. The chemistry between Mr. Trudeau and President Xi Jinping is very bad, and Canada is not an important player for China, so they prefer to focus their efforts on other countries, and I don't expect any short-term improvement in our relationship with China.
Mr. Saint-Jacques, I'll leave it there. Appreciate your analysis tonight, as always. Thank you.
Thank you.